In a quiet corridor of the Russell Senate office building late Tuesday night, a senior Republican staffer accidentally leaked details of a private conversation that the mainstream media is now calling the final straw for the Republican Party. For the last 48 hours, every network from CNN to MSNBC has been hyper-ventilating over a phone call between President Trump and Senator Susan Collins. They have breathless reports about the volume of the president's voice. They have unnamed sources describing the profanity used. They have panel discussions analyzing the breach of Senate decorum and the shock felt by the Washington cocktail circuit. They want you to believe that the story here is about a lack of politeness in the Oval Office. They want you focused on the tone, the temper, and the drama. But here is the truth. They are desperate to hide from you. This entire media narrative, the outrage, the shock, the clutching of pearls over bad words, is a calculated pattern interrupt designed to blind you. The establishment knows exactly how to play the game. When they do something indefensible in the legislative shadows, they create a spectacle in the public spotlight. They know that if you are debating the president's manners, you won't look at the president's map. And right now, looking at that map reveals a national security crisis that the Senate just made exponentially worse. The explosive phone call isn't the news. It's the smoke bomb. While the pundits are talking about a shouting match, the United States Senate quietly initiated a transfer of power that hasn't been seen since the 1970s. The real story isn't about what the president said to a senator. It is about what that senator just did to your national security. While the media was busy analyzing decibel levels, the Senate was engaged in a much more dangerous activity, dismantling the Article II powers of the commander-in-chief. The catalyst for that phone call was not a personal grievance. It was a vote on Senate Joint Resolution 42, a piece of legislation that effectively handcuffs the executive branch regarding the escalating situation in Venezuela. Most Americans didn't even know this vote was happening. It was scheduled late in the day with minimal debate and passed with a razor-thin margin of 51 to 49. But when you look at the text of SJ Res 42, you realize why the president was furious. This isn't just a standard war powers resolution. This bill requires the president to seek Senate approval for any non-defensive movement of naval assets in the Southern Caribbean. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button. Join this community because what I'm about to share is the kind of detailed analysis the mainstream media refuses to provide, and you need to hear this. This legislation effectively invites 535 members of Congress into the Situation Room. We are watching a repeat of the post-Vietnam era, specifically the damaging restrictions that emerged from the Church Committee in 1975, which hollowed out our intelligence capabilities for a decade. The senators who voted for this, including the one on the receiving end of that phone call, claim they are just reasserting congressional authority. But let's look at the reality on the ground. Russia and China have been aggressively moving into the Venezuelan energy sector. They are parking assets in our hemisphere. By passing this resolution, the Senate has telegraphed to Beijing and Moscow that the American president cannot move a single destroyer without first having a public debate in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Think about the strategic insanity of that position. We are dealing with adversaries who move at the speed of command, while the U.S. Senate wants us to move at the speed of a committee hearing. This resolution doesn't just stop a war, it paralyzes deterrence. It strips the president of the necessary ambiguity required to keep bad actors in check. And the most stunning detail is in the fine print of the resolution, Section 4, Paragraph B. This clause establishes a consultative group of 8 senators who must be briefed on all intelligence assessments regarding Venezuela within 48 hours. We know what happens when you brief 8 senators. You get 8 leaks to the New York Times. This is an oversight. It is an open door for operational compromise. The president understands that you cannot conduct national security strategy by committee, especially when that committee has a history of leaking like a sieve. The urgency in that phone call wasn't about ego. It was about the terrifying reality that the legislative branch is actively undermining the executive's ability to protect the American homeland. When you see specific vote counts like this, where Republicans cross the aisle to join Democrats in restricting a Republican president, you have to ask why. Why would they choose this moment, with global tensions at a boiling point, to weaken the commander-in-chief? The answer brings us back to that leaked phone call. When you connect these two events, the passage of a dangerous resolution and the immediate leak of a scandalous phone call, the picture becomes crystal clear. The leak didn't happen after the vote by accident. The leak was the insurance policy for the vote. The Senate establishment, the permanent political class in Washington, knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that if the American people actually read Senate Joint Resolution 42, if you understood that your representatives were voting to give China and Russia a free pass in our hemisphere, the backlash would be severe. They knew that primary voters would look at that roll call vote and see a betrayal of basic national security principles. So they created a shield. They released the narrative of the unhinged president to justify their betrayal. They want to be able to go back to their home states, to Maine, to Utah, to Alaska, and say, I had to vote against him. Look how unstable he is. Look how he spoke to me. It is a classic misdirection play. They are banking on the fact that you care more about polite language than you do about a nuclear-capable adversary setting up shop in the Caribbean. They are counting on the media to provide cover for their legislative sabotage. And here is the real-world impact of this political game. While senators are clutching their pearls on cable news, energy markets are already reacting to the signal of American weakness. Crude oil futures spiked 3% this morning because the market understands that the U.S. just blinked. That means higher gas prices for families in Ohio and Pennsylvania. That means higher shipping costs for small businesses that are already struggling with inflation. The weakness shown by the Senate doesn't stay in Washington. It travels to the gas pump, it travels to the grocery store, and it travels to the minds of our adversaries who are watching this dysfunction with glee. The senators who orchestrated this leak traded your security and your economic stability for a round of applause from the Washington press corps. They prioritized their standing at Georgetown dinner parties over the safety of the American Republic. What we are witnessing is being framed as a Republican revolt against the president. But when you strip away the headlines, you see the true revolt is the Senate establishment turning its back on the voters. This is the permanent Washington class protecting its turf against a disruptor who refuses to play by their rules. They value process. He values results. They value decorum. He values security. The revolt no one saw coming isn't the party leaving Trump. It is the voters realizing that their own senators are more aligned with foreign regimes than their own president. The Constitution gives the power to the people, not the Parliament of the Senate. We are at a crossroads for our republic. If we allow our national security to be held hostage by a group of legislators who care more about tone than truth, we lose the ability to defend this nation. But you have the remedy. The power is still yours. First, check the roll call vote on SJ Res 42. I've linked it below. See if your senator voted to handcuff our military. Second, call the offices of the senators who crossed the aisle. Remind them that they serve you, not the Washington press corps. Third, share this video to expose the leak strategy. Do not let them control the narrative with gossip. And finally, stay focused on the horizon. The American spirit is stronger than any Senate procedure. We have weathered weak leadership before, and we have corrected course. This is our moment to demand a government that fights for us, not against us. Don't just watch history unfold. Help shape it.